7 commissioners here, might possibly be 8. And so I would just like to take a moment, offer Roger a chance to, got any comments you want to make?
I do. It's been such a privilege to be a part of this with all 4 of you, all 5 of us. And I think particularly as we went through that process of appointing a new executive director, I felt like that was such a wonderful way to go out, to have had that bond with each other. And I really appreciate all of you in that respect. As far as staff goes, you guys are wonderful. And it would be impossible for the board to do its business without the direction that we get from you. And I will always think that the Weaver Park Master Plan was probably one of the, compared to what can happen in an organization, to see the way that you pivoted on that you brought in the community. I was so proud of you guys as a staff, and I really talked you up to people who were concerned about the Weaver Park situation. So, but yeah, this has been a wonderful privilege to be on the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I have some of the similar sentiments at this point. 42 years is a long time. I got involved and interested in being on the board while I was on UPTEC and just saw just how wonderful the staff was back then. And the generally good spirit of everybody trying to pull together to get the district's business done. And a board that more often than not was working cooperatively and not with a lot of contention. And trying to, not that everybody's agreeing with everybody else, but it's always in a good spirit of trying to get to the right solution for the community. And that spirit has maintained throughout most of that time that I've been on the board. And it's been a great privilege, I can say, to serve the citizens of Urbana in this position. And I think we leave knowing while there's some changes coming on pretty fast, that things are in pretty good hands. And I appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate, as Roger expressed, the way this board pulled together the last few months for a not very fun process. At the same time, a very important one. Where we ended up. And that said, about time for us, Roger and I, to get out of the way and let things roll on. Thanks again. Are you going to do the swearing in, Tim?
I will, yes.
Grab your name.
Oh, yeah. Well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Bartlett. I'm the Secretary of the Board this evening for the swearing in of the newly elected commissioners. As you know, we had an election on April 1st, 2025, and we had 2 new commissioners elected that will serve 6-year terms each. So I'd like to call up Sarah Roper and Ashley Withers at this time. We'll do the swearing in. First, we'll start with Sarah alphabetically. I'll move over to you all. All right, Sarah, if you'd raise your right hand, and then we provided you with the oath strip, if you would repeat it out loud.
I, Sarah Roper, having been elected to the office of Commissioner of the Urbana Park District in the County of Champaign in the state of Illinois, do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Commissioner to the best of my ability.
You're welcome, and please take one of our seats. Next, Ashley, please raise your right hand and repeat the oath strip when you're ready.
I, Ashley Withers, having been elected to the office of the Commissioner of the Urbana Park District in the County of Champaign in the state of Illinois, do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Commissioner to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you both take a seat. Forward. Goodbye, thank you. Next on the agenda is the election of officers. The board will elect a president, and then the president and the board will then take nominations for the vice president. Nominations for the president should be made, discussed, and vote taken. Are there nominations for the office of president of the Board of Commissioners?
I nominate Cedric Stratton.
All in favor?
Aye.
Cedric, you're the duly elected president of the Board of Commissioners. You can proceed with the rest of the agenda, which is the next election position.
Thank you. All right, so do we have a nomination for vice president?
I nominate Meredith Blumenthal.
Second.
Okay, we'll just go ahead and start with a roll call vote.
Aye. Sorry.
Aye.
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 So that is passed unanimously. So Meredith, you're now the vice president. All right, so then we'll move forward to appointments. So right now we are currently looking to appoint our secretary, our assistant secretary, our treasurer, our attorney, our recorder, and our auditor. So there are recommendations. The recommendations are Allison Jones should remain assistant secretary, Thomas Brown should remain treasurer, Matt Deering should remain Urbana Park District attorney, Allison Jones, with the designee of the superintendent of business services, should continue as the board recorder, and Sickich should remain the district's auditor. And then in terms of board secretary, suggestions?
In our discussion, I think with the board and the staff, I think it was recommended to retain the executive director in that position with assistance from the assistant secretary.
Okay. So then.
All right, so I can make a
Yeah,
motion.
go ahead.
So
Very
I
long
moved
motion.
I moved to make the following appointments. Board Secretary, Executive Director Tim Bartlett, Assistant Secretary Allison Jones, Board Treasurer Thomas Brown, Attorney Matt Deering, Board Recorder Allison Jones, or the designee of the Superintendent of Business Services, and Auditor Sickich.
Second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. We'll go ahead and start with a roll call vote. Sarah?
Aye.
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 All right, so that passes unanimously. So our appointments have been made. Next, we need to appoint a commissioner to the Urbana Parks Foundation. This appointment is an annual appointment required by the foundation's bylaws. One commissioner is appointed to the foundation. And I will accept any nomination, we'll hold a discussion and vote.
I nominate Cedric Stratton.
All right.
I'm happy to do this.
Okay, then I nominate Meredith. I wasn't sure if you still had time.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Second.
All right, so that's moved and seconded. Roll call vote, start with Ashley.
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. Thank you, Mayor. And now we need to appoint commissioners as UPDAC representatives. The appointment is an annual appointment required by the UPDAC bylaws. Up to 2 commissioners may be appointed, but at least 1 is required, excuse me. And I will accept nominations and discussion and vote.
I move to appoint Cedric Stratton and Laura Hastings as UPDAC representatives.
Second. All right. Has been moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Starting with Sarah.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Finally, we need to appoint a representative to the Urbana TIF Joint Review Board.
Cedric, I was going to mention, historically, it's often been the president and the executive director, but it could be any new combination of others that serve. Typically, the meetings are in December, usually on an early Thursday, early in the month, around 3 o'clock. So it's a set meeting. Certainly, anyone with concerns can plan ahead.
Is it Tuesday or February 10th? Is it February or December?
I think typically in the winter. It's been different times.
It's in the
of year.
winter.
We haven't met as early
I
as
like it.
December,
November.
January.
When you have a snow day.
I know there is a deadline where it has to be done, but generally the city manages that.
Regardless,
December.
I'm more than happy to serve for that as well.
Well, I move then to appoint Commissioner Cedric Stratton and Executive Director Tim Bartlett to the Urbana TIF Joint Review Board.
Just a correction, since I wouldn't be here for that next meeting, it might be better to recommend Rachel as our incoming executive director.
All right.
Happy to serve, but I wouldn't be in a capacity.
Then I move to appoint Commissioner Cedric Stratton and Rachel Lenz, incoming Executive Director, to the Urbana TIF Joint Review Board.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I realize I was skipping discussion. There's a lot of discussion necessary for these. So then can I get a roll call vote, starting with Sarah?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All right, that is passed unanimously. Thank you all. So then now we can adjourn to our regular board meeting. So this is our regular board meeting, Tuesday, May 13th at 7 p.m., 7:17 p.m. at this point. And because we already talked about outside attendance, that's not necessary, we move ahead to accept the agenda.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the point? All right, we will do a roll call vote, starting with Ashley.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Now I open the floor to public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to make a comment this evening? All right, seeing none. We also, unfortunately, don't have any new staff introductions, but we always look forward to them. So next, we have our Urbana Park District Advisory Committee report. As you all know, the Advisory Committee appointed by the Board of Commissioners. The members of that are appointed for staggered 3-year terms. And she says, provide a report for the April meeting. Unless anyone has any comments about that, we can go ahead and move forward with the consent agenda. So all action and information items appearing below are considered routine by the board and shall be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired, that item shall be removed and discussed separately. Commissioners have had an opportunity to review these items prior to the board meeting. So I do have to go through all of the items that are on the consent agenda. So the approval of the minutes of the March 4th, 2025 executive session, approval of the minutes of the March 11th, 2025 executive session, approval of the minutes of the March 25th, 2025 executive session, approval of the minutes of the March 31st, AM and PM 2025 executive session, approval of the minutes of the April 1st, 2025 study session meeting, approval of the minutes of April 2nd, special board meeting, approval of the minutes of the April 3rd, special board meeting, our 3 regular monthly reports, one from administration, one from planning and operations, and one from recreation. Our action to accept the philanthropy report and gifts list listed with gratitude, approval of the monthly paid accounts payable, actions on resolution 2025 to appoint UPD FOIA officers, Action on Resolution 2025-04 to appoint UPD-OMA representatives. Action on Resolution 2025-05 to appoint UPD-ADA coordinators. And action on annual appointments and assignments. Is there anything that a commissioner would like to remove from the consent agenda? If not, then I will accept a motion to accept them.
I move that the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners approve all the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner. Whatever, yeah, omnibus sounds better.
Second.
All right, so that's been moved and seconded. Go ahead and have a roll call vote, starting with Ashley.
Aye.
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 All right, so that passed unanimously, so we accept the consent agenda. Now we can move forward to reports. We'd like to cover our financial reports.
I love that you say look forward to, that makes me happy. Welcome, Sarah and Ashley. We'll begin, as per usual, with our fund balance reports. Our first set of reports here show our receipts or revenues and expenditures. The columns listed here are the prior 12-month period, the budget for the current period, and the preliminary unaudited results for the 12 months ending on April 30th, 2025. Again, this is the end of our fiscal year, April 30th, and what you see today in this packet and these reports is largely going to change over the next few months as we move through the audit, annual audit. So on page 1, starting with page 1, this is labeled as Sum 1, and this is all funds excluding our capital improvements fund. Here we note that the total revenues are $14,915,233, and then total expenditures reflect $14,046,787. This leaves us with a surplus after 12 months, meaning there's an excess of revenues over expenditures of $868,446. Page 2 is our capital improvements fund standalone. Here the revenues for the 12 months are $7,402,451. Total expenditures $7,712,831. Here expenditures are exceeding our revenues, resulting in a deficit of $310,379. The beauty of the capital budget fund. Page 3, listed as Sum 3. This here is reflects all of our funds district-wide. Here we're noting the bottom, very bottom line here is showing total ending fund balances of all funds aggregate $10,665,229. The remaining pages in this report, set of reports, are our 3 working capital funds. This would be our general, recreation, and museum funds, as well as the last page of our the UIAC indoor school fund. If no questions, I'll move on to the treasurer's report. Okay. The treasurer's report, page 1, this is the report of the amount of cash the district has on one day, April 30th, 2025. On the left-hand side lists all of our funds. Across the top lists where all of our cash is invested. Noticing at the bottom right, total investments to date, $12,751,518.14. Page 2 is 2 sections here. The top section lists the amounts that we have in interest-bearing accounts. So of that $12,750,000 on page 1, $9,208,885.27 is out in investments at varying rates. The bottom of page 2, this lists interfund loan activity. There was no new activity in the month of April. And our last page is our list of disbursements during the month of April. This includes vendor payments, which match the accounts payable reports in the consent agenda. And then it also includes payroll. So total distribution of funds, $607,424. And that presents you the treasurer's report for audit.
I move that the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners accepts the treasurer's report for audit.
Second.
All right, so that's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the point? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Sarah.
Aye.
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 Hi.
All right, so that passes unanimously.
Last set of reports would be the capital improvement, or the capital improvement budgets. Here, I'm happy to report that there is no fund with no activity, and we get to retire one. So, that's good news, good news.
Awesome.
All right, starting on page 1, this is our 2019A capital budget. Here we are recognizing $41,445 received from the Urbana Parks Foundation, direct relation to HAWK, Health and Wellness Center.
Are these new or just regularly scheduled bills?
For the HAWK?
Yeah.
These are just accumulations. So as they're accumulating, as the foundation is receiving either
Their commitments?
pledges, their commitments, or new ones,
Okay.
both, they get forwarded to us twice a year.
Okay, so this is the one.
This is one of the two. So then we also received $61,404 from DCEO grant reimbursements, also in relation to HAWK. And this is fully depleted, or reimbursements all met, full $3 million. So we're done with that one. Under expenditures, we did expense $57,019 to Farnsworth. This was for additional design work during the course of the HAWK build. This was in total a $250,000 bill from Farnsworth, and you're going to see that here in a couple places to get that fully paid up. We also expended $2,932 using our general transfer fund. Again, this is for miscellaneous supplies, fulfilling our FF&E items. Our new budget, 2025. We did receive $4,600 in tributes and donations. We received from CUSR on this particular budget, $50,000 towards ADA improvements. We bill out the Champaign-Urbana Special Rec, CUSR, twice a year typically. We haven't had any expenditures that require us to bill mid-year, so last couple of years have just been at the end of the year. You're going to see this across a couple of other budgets as well, kind of a repeat. And then we also did receive $40,000 in donations to purchase the 2 pieces of sculpture. Under the expenditures here, $4,195 was expensed to IGW. This was in relation to the ADA ramp design at the Phillips Rec Center. And then also $7,085 in total. Part of it was to MET for asbestos testing, and $5,895 was to A&R to relocate the water. Both of those were in relation to the Candidate Park shed demo. And then we did purchase 2 wide area mowers under equipment. Here, I didn't indicate the exact amount here. This $52,000 beside the asterisk included a previous purchase as well. At the end of the day, we spent $35,000 on one mower, $28,000 on the other, and then we had a $23,000 trade-in. So the net effect of the purchase of those 2 mowers was just over $40,000. One small expenditure on the 2024 was a tribute tree, $132. On the 2023 budget, recognizing $47,487. Again, this is the CUSR reimbursement. Under expenditures, We had a very small $52 bill. This was for the South Ridge Park trail signage, and then also $1,112 for some testing. $2,897 was expensed to Upland Design. Number 7, this was in relation to Prairie Play at Meadowbrook Park. Next page, 2022, recognizing $23,237 in donations from the foundation in relation to Meadowbrook Prairie Play. And then down at the bottom, we had a couple expenditures using contingencies, $4,701 to Upland Design, another portion of the bill mentioned previously, $23,148 again to Farnsworth for additional design work at Hawk. 2021, we had an expenditure under contingencies. Farnsworth additional design, $82,719. 2020 budget, recognizing COSR reimbursement, $6,130 under revenues. We had 2 expenditures. One was for $1,750. This was for engineering work, engineering work at South Ridge Park. And again, the Farnsworth additional design work, $87,114. And this is the one we did to put this to sleep. We did receive from CUSR $2,120. Nobody has to look at that one anymore. Are there any questions on the capital budgets? All righty, then I will turn it over to Derek and Andy.
Okay, so Southbridge has been a pretty successful project as far as our bids, the overall budget. We haven't had any change orders. I think we went over in the study session as well with King Park and the budget impacts for that project. I think really just 2 board meetings, and we basically have all the updates that I'm going to give for the construction of the project altogether. So last month they were finishing up pouring concrete, so we had pictures of forms. Shortly after the meeting, they were backfilling and prepping the topsoil for seeding work. So this is all in mid to late April, basically getting that all prepped and then seeding. This is either last week or a week and a half ago, so everything's starting to come up nicely, and we have a nice, beautiful path in the park. That's been a pretty big hit, as far as I understand.
Perfect timing for growing grass.
It all worked out really well. The whole project was really good. So obviously we did have some punch list items. The contractor's still working through some of those. Kyle from our staff, who's new Keith, I guess, some of you may know better. He's been installing benches as well. So the contractor had 4 additional bench pads to pour, and then it was on us to buy the benches and then get them installed. So that's been one of his tasks in the last week or 2 as well. And then on the right, it's just kind of a note. One of the main punch list items is they need to come back and repaint the parking stall, and we're still owed a sign. There's some minor cleanup throughout the site, but other than that, it's been a really good process. Very positive project. So that moves us to KRT. Obviously, there was a groundbreaking event last week. Quick update on the other portion of the overall project, Champaign County and Vermilion County's portion. They're moving forward with the Conkey Bridge, where it was under the recommendation of both IDNR and ERA, a third party they had to come evaluate to utilize the existing bridge. So right now they're updating their drawings with the design team for a single bid that would include any rework of that bridge with the trail. There's no major repairs are needed or anything. So I don't have a time when they're anticipating that bid going out, but I know that's something that they're in progress to wrap up here soon. Tree removals, the actual felling of the trees was completed before April 1st. The actual materials getting removed from site still, and that's probably wrapping up fairly soon as well. And then moving to our site at Weaver Park, I think the day after groundbreaking, construction fencing starts coming in. More machines came in on Monday. Today out there, they're starting to do some of the dirt work and preparing the area for the pavilion. And they're looking to get some measurements from our structure to start preparing for pouring of the foundation. So they're ready to move on this as fast as possible. But we will have a long lead item, and that is the structure, the polygon pavilion structure itself. There is potential where we'll get a lot of the site work done, but we may be waiting a little bit and have kind of a stall in the project until we have delivery of that structure, so they can then finish up the pavilion portion. As we get more information, I'll just continue to update every month on that. I used to update over the winter about our BC Woods bridge. So you may remember we had a preliminary, well, I guess first we had an evaluation of all of our bridges in the district with ERA. As part of that evaluation, we had a recommendation to plan for repair or replacement of the BC Woods Bridge. This also had an application for grant funding for DCEO. Once we got word that we were going to get that fund, those funds that basically steered us to, we're going to do a full replacement of the bridge in place, not looking at any sort of repairs or relocation. So now recently we've got the authorization to begin work and actually accumulating expenditures that we can get reimbursement. So we met with ERA and we're working to get a proposal from them that we should have in front of the board next month, and that would take us through design, bid documents, bidding, construction observation. And like I said, we hope to have that in front of you all with a recommendation next month. Once we get an approval and enter into contract for those professional services, we'll have another review meeting with the drainage district, kind of talk about the overall scope of our project, our elevations that we're seeing for the bridge, and our plans to see if we have any red flags before ERA gets too deep in the design process for the replacement itself. And then just to kind of an estimate of what our schedule would be, we're looking to bid this winter. So it could be early winter, maybe December or January, and then that would have an award recommendation to the board February or March of 26. And the bridge, we're kind of doing something similar to Sanitary District, the recent ITEP project. This is a prefabricated bridge. It's a very long lead time. ERA was kind of cautioning that right now it's looking like 6 months from the time you get an order to delivery. So even though we may have a contract for construction in the winter, construction may not actually start until late summer or fall of 2026, maybe not wrapping up until we get into 27, early 27. So that all depends on those lead times. Now this is, I think we had a request at the study session for statistics for the Sioux Wall. So they give us certain parameters. There's not a ton of detailed statistics, but I've basically pulled everything that I can get from their website that we can kind of walk through just to kind of give an idea of usage and the games that are getting used and that kind of stuff. So statistics this year, obviously we're really just getting into spring, so we've got a lot of cold months and rainy weather, of course, but probably about 45 hours of play. Target is the most popular game. That game alone was 10 hours, 10 and a half hours. The most popular day, which was odd to me, it was a Friday until I looked up, that was the Friday before Easter. Yeah, it was a nice day. So park was probably pretty busy that day. So just that day, obviously, as it shows, 2 hours. So top 5 games. The way this works is we have a library of games. It's probably, I probably should have looked up the exact number, it's probably around 15 games. But at any one time, there's 5 games that you can play on the system. So you push the button, it'll tell you what game it is. You push it again, it'll cycle to the next game. There's 5. Every week, it looks at it automatically does this, I don't do this. It looks at the statistics for all the games, and whichever one gets used the least, it puts back in our library and pulls a random one from the library that has not been played, that was not part of that previous week's 5, and pulls that up. So then over time, you kind of just you get new ones every week, one new one every week, but the ones that are really popular keep staying. I've never seen Target and Spot, and I don't think I've ever seen Shape not on our list. Now, I don't check it every month, but I've always seen those. So Target is basically, it'll have a target that you shoot out. Spot is a little more intense version of Target where it's more timed and it'll move, and at some points it'll even have 2 spots show up where one could be a bonus and it could add time for you, so it's a little more high energy. Color I was not aware of, I had to look this one up. So this one would be like, Derek and I are going to play against each other. Derek's going to be the green color, I'm going to be the red color, and we each have our own soccer ball, and when he hits it, it changes to his color. When I hit a square, it changes to my color. Whoever gets the most squares into their color scheme by the end wins. Shape is, it'll create different shapes on the board, and you just have to knock out each panel to knock out the shape. And Rainbow I had never seen before. This one must be new for this week, I guess. And I had to look this one up too because I had not played this one or seen it in action. And it's basically, it's a non-competitive game. You just hit panels and they change the different colors, like the colors of the rainbow.
Are most people playing this like soccer balls, or are they like using pickleball stuff, or do we know? Like,
I don't
you're not
know
there
for
all the time.
sure. I've seen a lot of people with soccer balls on it, but
Yeah, I didn't know if there was a.
Does it, yeah, I know like tennis balls, like can pickleballs hit it hard enough to like set it off?
Trigger.
Yeah, to trigger it?
I don't believe so, but I haven't fully tested that like as hard as I could hit it.
Yeah, well,
I feel a playlist coming.
I'm willing to try it out though.
There were some guys out there with discs.
Oh,
So they
yeah.
were heavy enough, like they were playing the one where it lights up and they were trying to hit each one, but if you hit it twice, then you're done, it starts you back over.
One that I thought would stay in popularity is where it actually measures your velocity and it'll pull up the mile per hour, and I thought tennis players, I mean any soccer players too, would all kind of like to do that, and that one's kind of cycled out on occasion, so I'm not sure. So this is another kind of graph it'll give us, was total play time. I did the previous year. So average per day last year, calendar year, was 30 minutes a day. So obviously this includes our winter months, our rain and all that stuff. And I think what we'll see later is a lot of people are playing and it's probably like 5 to 10 minutes at a time. Some people are just hitting the button and maybe experimenting with the game and going off to play pickleball or tennis or whatever. But you start seeing people, 5, 10, 15 minutes, then they're playing probably multiple games because each game doesn't really take a super long time. So obviously it kind of gives you a bell curve, when you start in the winter and summer months and then drops back down as well. So the total hours last year was almost 177 hours, which I feel is pretty good because again, it's not like if you're measuring how much the tennis court's being used, each person's probably playing an hour and a half on the court, where we're seeing games that are 5, 10 minutes each. So that,
I mean, you
that
can't
adds
play
up.
this if all the courts are being used, right?
You could play it up close to the wall if the very far west court was, but you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a distraction to the other court for sure.
And I'm still telling people what it's for. Like if I see them walking around with a ball or something, hey, have you seen our wall
Yeah.
over there? And they think it's just to hit tennis balls on. They think it's like the green wall. So, we're still informing people what it's about. So it's pretty cool.
So then I took that same graph and then I changed the data set to this calendar year. And so we're at an average per day. This is less, but again, we're not into the summer yet, so this is probably going to keep increasing as we go. So about 20 minutes each day. And then we're at 42 hours so far total play. Yeah, we must have had a really big warm spell in here, spring break.
Looks like March, right?
Yeah. So you can kind of see how things change, obviously, as we change months. And then it'll give us weekday popularity. So previous year, no surprise, Saturday, Sunday. Monday is the third most popular. And then when I pulled it to this year, I think that Good Friday is really skewing things right now. Probably over time it'll drop back down. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the most popular days. And then we can drill down even further and look at each day. So this one I can't go like a full year. The largest set I can get is a month. So what I pulled was, this is last month, and it'll give me each day. Grayed out sections or hours that it's not operational. We have it set up from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then as our, I don't know why that's popping up. As the blue gets darker, it's more time that's spent. So then you can see each day when it gets played, and then as you see the darker blues, it's getting played, more intensely for longer periods of time. And when you see them grouped together, I mean, they're probably playing multiple games back to back to back kind of thing. So then I thought, well, it'd be interesting. Let's look at last year, and I'll pull a summer month, and we'll just see how that goes. So I'm guessing we got a rainstorm in the middle, but in the early June to end of June, there's a lot of darker blues and lots of grouping together, which is good to see. And that's it. That's all the kind of stats they give us, but it's kind of neat every once in a while to come in and take a look at it and just see how it's being used. And every year I kind of want to go back and see if hopefully after we can go back 4 years or 3 years in the future and see, but not sure. That's it. Happy to answer any questions.
We will go ahead and move forward to the executive director.
Great, thank you. I have a few updates. Starting out, just wanted to confirm that I communicated prior to the meeting about our TIF 4 extension request from the city of Urbana. Just a quick sort of primer. I think in our commissioner workshop, we talked about TIF districts, or generally how they work. But essentially, the city function is used typically for economic development purposes. It's a way of identifying legally a boundary of an area, a way to freeze and collect that tax, reinvest it in other priorities, and the goal would be during that 12-year window, enough of reinvestment would occur that would ultimately elevate the tax, property values at the end of that time, so you would receive more money as you come back into the receivership. So historically, we've always supported them. My time at the Park District and before, cities are able to move ahead without us. You could certainly negotiate an arrangement. But when Laura and I met with the city, our main priority was we need a flexibility approach to be able to work on our highest priorities, which, for example, in the TIF 4 area, facilities like this and parks on this side, a TIF map to show you, but it's designated. But maybe our priorities shift, and we're going to do work at the lake house, so we need opportunities to rebuild. We think that's a economic development and redevelopment there will bring new interest in the area. So I think the city is willing to work with us to find ways to either transfer port money to other priority areas from other TIFs, or work on other arrangement ways that we can help meet our priorities. So again, that's our main concern. Are we going to receive support at the right time for high priority projects, or are we stuck in, you can only draw from this district, and if those are no longer priorities, to generate enough bills, so to speak, to be reimbursed any benefit. So we'll finalize and send in our support letter. Again, that'll be for extension, the extension of another 12 years up to 4, not a boundary change. Just want to report that. I'll continue with the report. Just wanted to remind folks we had a terrific site visit on April 18th. We visited 3 communities to look at accessible play, primarily universal design, although we did see examples of traditional ADA approaches to many of the facilities or components, all-inclusive equipment. So as we continue to work on this at Special Rec, we'll make sure everybody's more fluent in the labels and feel comfortable. But we saw some really good examples at New Lenox, Illinois, at the Lincoln Way Special Rec Association. It was really a fantastic facility. If you're ever in the area, it's definitely worth visiting. We stopped at Oak Brook, a little bit older, maybe a 10-year-old playground, but had some really interesting theming and fun, accessible things. Very unique because it was parallel to like a baseball field. So it had Sandlot theme, like the movie. They borrowed the movie theme. Very clever, it was very well done, held up very nicely. And then lastly, Downers Grove. So another, what I call more of a neighborhood or community park that was shared by one of the park district's facility, and they had an adjacent Catholic school that they shared parking, and so they shared site amenities and playgrounds. Very well done, and we appreciate the leaders that met us. And we did that jointly with the Champaign Park District staff and our CU Special Rec staff. So we did the CUS Special Rec bus, and we made our trip and really learned a lot, so we're appreciative of that. Continuing on, we hosted the University of Illinois College reporting on the U of I's College in Fine and Applied Arts workshop that was held at the Elm City Coffee Shop on April 24th. Area-wide arts and culture-related people were invited, and the discussion was really centered around the Fine and Applied Arts Department, college interest in doing much more outreach. So kind of invite people in, what could you offer, who would your partners be, and how do we begin organizing new services to really ramp up our arts and culture scene. I was really pleased that they met in Urbana. There were a lot of Urbana-related, university-related folks, so obviously it speaks well to the culture and everything that's happening, but I would expect new improvements. So it's kind of a flush out of problems and issues, barriers, and then we'll want to continue how do we make inroads to offering more and finding opportunities for everyone, including our student groups. Moving on, Janet Sosby and I were able to attend the Chicago Art Expo on April 25th. We had a meeting scheduled with John Isherwood, who's one of our premier sculptors. That is, we have two of his pieces at Meadowbrook Park. We've had an ongoing dialogue. In fact, John was one of our early artists. We had a piece called Keystone that came from Navy Pier in the early years of our program. Unfortunately, that piece was our only piece that was vandalized and destroyed. We had an insurance payout, or we paid him. But over the years, we've stayed in contact. He's never held that against us. He clearly understood, how it happened. But we're interested in finding a way to acquire both of those pieces. So we wanted to find out what he was able to do and willing to do. So we'll be reporting back and talking with the foundation and some of our potential art donors, and see if we can move forward with the acquisition of his two pieces. Want to report on the Urbana Parks Foundation. We had an organizational planning session. Want to thank Kelsey Vecchio. She did an excellent job of organizing it. Working with Amanda Sandifer, a local consultant that her primary expertise is libraries. She works with a lot of library foundations. She's formerly employed at the Urbana Free Library, and now has her own consulting. She works with a lot of not-for-profits. I'd worked with her in another capacity. She helped our organization a lot. So we've had two sessions, and she's finalizing our report, and we'll be meeting to go over that. So again, it's more of the organizational, how do we take on new roles, what are the goals and purposes, and then later we'll have to continue to work within the foundation to determine our next campaigns, organizing our fundraising strategies. So it's not a master plan fundraise, but it was how do we get better organized, assume our roles, and know how we're working together to make the foundation successful, more successful. Reporting on the Art Park Spring Meeting, April 29th. Had a really good discussion. Again, I've continued to suggest insurance industries are in flux right now. There's a lot of pressure. Certainly some of our concerns about climate change and the impacts to facilities, parks, and the environment are continuing to be discussed. So we'll be tracking that. I'll continue to serve on iParks until and through the January 2026 meeting. So I'll be involved representing that organization. Reporting that we hosted the Central Illinois Roundtable at the Health and Wellness Center on May 2nd. Thank you, Corky, for organizing. You did an excellent job of setting us up, making sure everybody was welcome and get a lot of good information about the facility, including his tour of the facility. Appreciate that. So we had directors from different park districts. We rotate seasonal meetings. We go to different sites, learn what they have, and kind of a sharing and growth opportunity for primarily the directors. IAPD attends the meetings and provides information from the association on legal matters and other updates. Lastly, wanted to share out our wonderful brochure that we took to Springfield for the Champaign County First Lobby Day that was held May 8th. For our ongoing board, you know that the Champaign County First is our lobby group. Our visits to Washington DC, that's happened a few weeks ago, and then there's a Springfield trip, and I was able to go this year. Often I can't go because we have our own IAPD lobby event about the same time. But we've had, that's how our Kickapoo Rail Trail project first sort of got promoted statewide, and we were able to receive funds for that. You'll notice in this booklet, we do have another request, and that is to try to get assistance. We don't need money, we need assistance in convincing Norfolk Southern Railroad that that 1 acre site could be sold or leased easily so that we can move through our construction this summer. Fortunately, we received some assistance. We have a few contacts. We've already had a follow-up meeting, Derek and I don't want to say we're done, but we're moving closer. We think we have a group that could probably intercede for us. We have other people. During the meeting, I talked with one of Senator Duckworth's aides that's also retiring, but he contacted his replacement and got me connected, so we'll be also working with that group. I think we have a number of other folks that we can go working, but we felt stuck that we didn't have the right person. We were just in a spin cycle, and meanwhile the calendar is ticking by and our construction's out there. Even though we did get an additional year extension, there's a lot of construction to be done, and we know how that works. So every day is important. So we're hoping contact with the Illinois Railroad Association could break through that and get a dialogue going. But we'll keep you informed. It was Derek, Lori Pearson from the Forest Preserve, and myself with some other associates helping with that. So please take a look at that brochure. We met with, we want to list some of the groups we met with, not exhaustive, but representatives from the Office of the Governor. We met with Chief of Staff from IDOT, the Illinois Municipal League. Both of our state representatives, Carol Ammons, was in session, so she was not able to meet with us. But we did have a brief meeting with Senator Barachi and Senator Chapin Rose. They were able to free up. We met with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. And I think at the top, let's see, the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So we get DCO, and they were very impressed with the brochure. And you can imagine, if we didn't do this collectively, the Park District, the cities, Savoy, all of our local units would be making separate trips to Springfield. So we got the idea about 8 years ago to consolidate, start to put together high-quality projects. We have a process to be considered. You just can't slap your project on. It goes through a vetting process and has to be voted and approved by that committee. Everyone is aware that we're trying to get different scales and different types of projects, but we don't want 20 projects. We need to sort of narrow it down into what can we get done in a reasonable amount. But we get a good response because it's organized, the contact information's there. You can imagine even one day of meetings with groups, it'd be very easy to forget who was who and what was what. So all the groups are very pleased, and probably wish all the groups could do something like that. So that's how us stand out, make our project stand up, and then we can individually continue to advocate our project. And then lastly, just reporting that staff still meets with our senators and representatives. We want to talk about Park District business, what's important to us, and the projects that we have coming up. So stay tuned, and we'll see what kind of activities and action we can get out of Springfield. Can answer any questions about that if you have any.
Well, thank you, Tim. So then we'll go ahead and move to the President's report. So just noting a few meetings coming up. Our May 27th UpDeck meeting is at the Perkins Road Park Tour, so my personal favorite. I'm looking forward to that one. We have our board study session on the 3rd. That'll be about green team. We have our June 10th regular board meeting, which will include annual action annex, territory, and TUPD if needed, a review and discussion of projects or charges for UPDAC, and then appointment of new UPDAC members. And then the next following June 24th is the following UPDAC meeting for which will go over the strategic plan and CARES. Then I guess the only thing I'll say is I appreciate the opportunity to be the president, and I have obviously big shoes to fill, but you know I look
Big
forward to it.
Birkenstocks.
But you know, I really look forward to it, and as always, I relish being on the board, and it's fantastic. So thank you. So then I will go ahead and so we'll move to our liaison reports. First, our finance study group. Either of you gentlemen would like to come and give a brief report on that?
Chair.
So we,
Welcome back.
Couldn't stay away.
the finance study group last met on the 2nd of May, so it's been a study session and now tonight's meeting since then. Going down the agenda, there was some discussion of the Provena proposal for settlements. That's still a bit up in the air, although the report is it seems to be heading towards some resolution, but it's not done until it's done. Discussion of public art. I think Tim has covered almost everything.
Yeah, I think he has.
He's
He's very good at that.
So I don't think there's anything particularly new there. There was a discussion of the Park District's health insurance. And as you may recall, Health Alliance is pulling out of that business at the end of this calendar year, not the end of our fiscal year, but the end of this calendar year. So there's going to be a new provider. The question is, who is it going to be? And that's still a matter to be determined. And I think there's pretty strong feeling amongst staff that trying to add some kind of family coverage to the Park District's employment package is something worth considering. And at the same time, health insurance rates are very hard to project at this point in time. So that's likely to be an ongoing discussion. Again, we had some discussion of Weaver Park and the KRT Pavilion, but I think that has been pretty well covered between Andy's report and Tim's. There was some ongoing discussion of the Del Coleman Park possibly acquiring the Del Coleman Homestead to add on to that and make a better connection to 130. Again, that's something that's sort of boiling in the background, so to speak, or simmering in the background, probably be a better way to put it. There may be some challenges raising money for that, but we did talk about conceivable grant opportunities that might help with something of that sort. Some discussion of ongoing contacts with both Representative Budzinski, trying to pitch some things to her. She's not in a very powerful position at the moment with the current makeup of the U.S. Congress, and also making sure that Representative Ammons at the state level understands some of the projects that would be valuable and useful follow-ons, particularly in the Weaver Park area. There were some brief updates to the capital improvement budget, but that too now has been covered in this meeting. And I don't recall that there were any other new topics. And there was a question of the next meeting, and there was no next meeting determined. So it is up to the current board and staff to figure out what happens with the finance study group and when it would meet. I don't have any questions, but that's pretty well what happened. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. The policy study group?
So we met on April 21st to discuss some ADA evaluation recommendations provided by Jack Spolsky related to service animals and other powered or mobility devices. And so I think we're still waiting on some information. Isn't that correct, Derek? So we're not taking any action, but we should see something forthcoming in future board meetings. Updates. I think that's about that.
Thank you. Foundation, Roger.
The Urbana Park Foundation met yesterday. Because of injury, I wasn't able to be part of their strategic planning process, but they did produce a document called Urbana Parks Foundation Board Guiding Principles. And I would strongly recommend that the board obtain this and have an opportunity to talk with them at some point when you have a joint meeting in terms of what they're looking for from the Board of Commissioners. There were two things that I really liked that they did on the strategic plan. One was that they are planning on focusing more, it's kind of happened anyway, but focusing more on people who maybe grew up in Urbana, maybe spent some time when they were younger in Urbana and using the Urbana parks, and seeking funding donations from them. So I think that's a good way to go. The other thing that I've been pushing a lot as a liaison, I don't know if that was strictly my responsibility, but I pushed it anyway, was focusing on small gifts. And because there are a lot more small gifts out there than there are large ones. And one of the things that they said, even small gifts are valuable. I thank them for that. So anyway, that was good. The other thing they said, align with Urbana Park District goals and priorities and coordinate communication. I think their feeling is, even though they felt that it was good that Tim and I were present at all the meetings and presented reports on what the board had done, that they kind of needed more than that. As they put it, regular updates were good, but not always the background, just the final result. So they wanted to know more, and oftentimes in the question section, they would ask me questions about why did you do this and how did that happen and that sort of thing. And it's always hard, and Commissioner Blumenthal will find this out, it's always difficult to know what you should say and what you shouldn't say, because you hear a lot more as a commissioner that perhaps needs to go, it's not finished at that point. So that's going to be something that might be a work in progress. But I think they are really looking for more coordination with the board of commissioners. So that's my report. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Roger.
So,
And then up there, planning study group.
We met last week.
Mhm.
Yeah, we did. And we came up with a great agenda. Lots of new topics, some revisited topics, and it's going to be an exciting year for UPDEC. And we're still looking for people to serve on UPDEC, so if you know anyone, anybody out there watching us on YouTube, we'd love to have you join our UPDEC.
How many are we still looking for?
you say around 3 to 5 is ideal. We'd love more, because sometimes we lose some people, so.
How many are currently on deck?
I don't know the exact number. Roughly 15 is our number. If we can keep 5 going and rotate them in and out, that's ideal. A little more, a little bit less.
I think like 3 or 4 rolling off.
Yeah.
And I think that we weren't
Yeah.
at like capacity. Yeah.
We haven't received any new applicants. We're just now,
We have a couple names, but we're definitely looking. And I should mention too, we don't have to nominate everybody next month, we can do it over as we continue to have discussions. But generally by our kickoff in the fall, this, in September, is when we would like to have everybody, on board. So that gives us a little more time if we're short.
Are there names circulating from the King Park?
Yes.
Group? Great.
There are. We're trying to work on our steering committee to
Yeah.
see if anybody would
Want to
join
join
us
us?
from that. That would be our
Fantastic.
primary group. And we, as you know, have historically not had as many people represented in that neighborhood, so might have some needs. Now, just a reminder, not everyone on the steering committee lives in the neighborhood, so we probably try to approach residents and see who could be available. So
I think we also have one resident across from the Health and Wellness Center that is interested.
Mhm.
Yep.
So if you know of anybody, please let us know, and just point us in the right direction, and we can talk to them.
Thank you. All right, so then we would, at this point, move to old business. Seeing that there's none, then we move to new business. Seeing as if there's none, I look forward to comments from commissioners.
I just want to say welcome to Ashley and Sarah. Looking forward to working with you.
Sam, I'm really glad to be here. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Excellent. Well, I think that exhausts our agenda, so I will call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Next month.